We are back live here on the Cowboys Report. It is a therapy hour and probably change most likely, since I think we all need the therapy after that game. We are still in the 24-hour window, which I think is important, especially on days like this, to say whatever you need to say, vent however you need to, and you can change your mind later. You are not beholden to whatever emotional reactions you might have, because I think they're all fairly justified there. So give me one word to describe how you're feeling right now. Depressed is a good one for me. I don't... The alcohol helped last night, but I still feel numb inside. You had a great chance to do something, and every single facet of your game was terrible. Your defense couldn't stop a nosebleed. Your offense was MIA for the first half of the game. They eventually got going, but too little too late. Your special teams helped you give the ball inside your own 22 on average. That's horrible starting position. You missed the kick. It was all terrible. So depressed is my one there. Dissatisfied, disappointed, frustrated, pissed, normal, scared, disappointed, angry, disgust, demolished, expected, depressed, normal, etc. From Justin, a super chat. This defense is obviously way too undersized. How can we fix this in the offseason? For starters, don't draft a nose guard and have him play under 300 pounds. Maybe don't do that. Maybe if you're going to draft a big fatty, let him be the fatty. Add some bulk at linebacker, which, DeMarvin Overshown's not that big of a player. If you're going to do a lot of light dime stuff, they also weren't, especially in the second half of the game, they kept putting the safeties back deep. They kept doing too high stuff and asking their safeties to fit the run from 12 yards deep, and it's just not going to work. You were just so light, and even your fronts were just so light in terms of their personnel. You got Damone Clark out there at edge. Really, is that really how you're going to play it? Add some beef in the middle. Jimmy Productions, I think we should trade Dak and start Trey Lance and see what he has. If he sucks, we draft Quinn Ewers, Shedeur Sanders, and the quarterback in 2025. If you're going to rebuild, this is probably your best path. And I think what you do in this offseason depends on, do you want to try to adjust and retool, or do you want to go into the full rebuild mode? The tricky part here is if you're trading away Dak, if you do it before June 1st, you're eating a massive cap hit because you screwed up when you initially did the deal because you waited too long and you were idiots then. You're taking a big hit this year. You're not really surrounding Lance. That's a quarterback contract that would cause issues for you. The current one hasn't yet. Or you kind of just do a post-June 1st trade, but that doesn't happen very often, as we saw with Rodgers, etc. So if you want to rebuild, which I don't think Jerry wants to do, I think that is your best path. You see what Lance can do with, my expectations would probably be pretty low. And if that fails, then in theory, you're drafting high enough to take a new quarterback in 2025, whoever that ends up being. Dez the GOAT Bryant, a first-time super chat. Thank you, Dez. I don't want a schematic head coach. I want someone who is going to change the culture. Houston did it with DeMeco Ryans. He created a winning and disciplined culture. I think your options there are then going to be guys like Mike Vrabel, Bill Belichick, and Jim Harbaugh. And those coordinator hires then would be incredibly important. You saw it in Tennessee, right? Tennessee had a lot of success early on. Arthur Smith was a great offensive coordinator. Didn't do a great job as head coach. Matt LaFleur was a great offensive coordinator. He didn't stick around very long. You're probably seeing something similar in Houston right now, where you have Bobby Slowick, who's probably going to be a head coach this cycle or next cycle. But I do think Dez the GOAT Bryant, or whoever he really is probably on point here. The constant themes of this team's failures of somehow not being prepared and getting outcoached in the biggest of games blows my mind. A lack of attention to detail in terms of the way they space their routes, in terms of their fits, all of it. It's been a constant issue under both Garrett and Mike McCarthy. They've had issues with stupid penalties. You saw the DPI and the offsides, and you had chances to get stops there, and then you didn't do anything after that because your defense was just... That was a terrible defensive showing, man. That was bad. Dream Productions, the point is one of Dak or McCarthy has to go. Dan Quinn has to go too. I do agree with this. In fact, I'm fully on board with all of these statements. Again, still 24 hours emotional, so whatever. I think this core, and we can define the core however we want to, but I'll include Dak, McCarthy, and Quinn here as part of it. It's not going to work. Like, this is the ceiling. Regular season success, and I think it's a McCarthy thing, and it trickles its way down. You tighten up and you play tight as a result in the biggest of games. The things that worked well for you this year were man coverage on defense, maybe to a fault at times, and airing it out. So what'd you do on defense? You played more zone. Not all the plays, by the way, that I think people thought were zone were man. I think there were such massive blown coverages in man that it looked like zone, which is a really bad thing. Like, all three scores, I think, were actually man calls by Dallas, and they just blew it somehow. And then you ran the ball out early. Like, it didn't make any sense, Sam, $20. Thank you, Sam. I will not do shots today. I don't have the energy for it. The liver probably needs a break, for being honest. Plus, I got a game to do during the night. This game just did it for me. I feel like not watching a regular season game anymore. What's the point? Rather be garbage in the regular season and get a good pick in the draft, other than doing well and losing in the first or second round. Hope's a dangerous thing, isn't it? Hope can drive a man insane. And I had hope this year, too. There's a reason why I never use the phrase, it's our year, though. Learned my lessons. Good news is you don't have a potential regular season game to watch for months now. It's not. I get it. We'll be here. But I get the depression fully. I'd say, happy to have you here. We'll keep you updated on stuff, Sam. But I didn't watch the Lions-Rams game last night. It's like the first playoff game I've missed in like as long as I remember. I'm just like I don't want to watch it. I didn't have the heart or energy to do it. And I won't rewatch it probably. But I did rewatch the Cowboys game this morning. Also, I was up at 1:30. I woke up and couldn't go back to sleep. Is what it is. Do you want to fire Mike McCarthy? Y for yes, N for no. It is the pinned poll. 86% say yes, 14% say no. I'm kind of surprised 14% say no, honestly. It's all the things that we liked about the offensive changes kind of went away in the first half. Like, they were trying to establish the run. They weren't doing a lot of motion. I just didn't get it. It's a yes for me, as my contact gets really irritated again. It's just not going to work. It's not going to work. You can't do this. We'll keep our head coach whatever thing, and because then you're stuck with Garrett again. I don't want that. Tan Fam, $5 super chat. All my friends are Cowboys haters. It's been a rough 20 hours. From now on, I'll be picking the worst possible outcome every year for this team. I get it. We can't believe in this team until they prove us wrong, right? And that even goes, beyond the head coach and the quarterback and the defensive coordinator and this player and that player. Like, it goes all the way through to ownership. And that's been your one constant for this terrible drought you're on. And I can't change the owner as much as I would like to, so I'm kind of stuck trying to change things I can. But I change why the head coach is the first one up, right? But all the shit we get, we have to stand there and take it. At least from Packers and 49ers fans. Like, gotta stand there and take it. Chris B, need McCarthy fired now. Can't run it back. If we get to Friday or Thursday or whatever, and Mike's not fired and Jerry does his, I'm pretty sure it's his normal like Tuesday after season stuff with 105.3. I'd be shocked if he showed up to that. I feel like that one's gonna get canceled. Who knows? But I just if you run it back, there's just no way. And I know the players are offering their support. I wouldn't expect anything different. It's not that they hate Mike the person. But it's not up to the players. It's not up to them to of course they're going to offer support. They offered support for Garrett. All the players offer support unless your name is Josh McDaniels. That doesn't mean anything to me. That's meaningless. frankly. So what is, make that 0. That was intentional. 0 to 10. Because I know you guys. Like, I'll go back to this. Like, again, Chris B's right. You gotta move on. Like, you have to. So what is your confidence level in the Cowboys right now? Scale it for me from 0 to 10. I think there's going to be a lot of, Cam says 105.3 already canceled. Well, there you go. I mean, I don't think they're going to. I didn't think they were going to. Excuse me. 2 0 0 2 8 0 10 2 2 2 0 0 6 0 3 0 5 1 3.69 0 3 0 0 1. It's going to be, and here's the thing, there's nothing this team can do for an entire calendar year to make you have faith in them. There's nothing they can do. That they can win every game in the regular season next year, regardless of who the head coach is, and we're not going to believe in them until they show it. You had a great chance. You were at home. You were the 2 seed. And again, in the postseason, at home, twice you've done this. You just looked unprepared. How does that happen? Again, I will stick by this. I've said it way too much because I've said it pretty much every year, multiple times, especially come posting time for McCarthy, end of the Garrett era, when everything is bad. Again, who played well against the Packers? At least in the first half on offense when the game was over. Because, yeah, you had a bunch of nice garbage time stats. Who cares? When everything's bad, that's a coaching issue. It is. Jimmy Productions, if we hire Belichick, Tomlin, Carroll, or Vrabel, or someone else and decide to keep Dak, then we don't give a long-term contract. If he sucks next playoffs, then move on from him. So that's part of the issue here. Because of the fact that you messed up several years ago and didn't do the Dak contract the way you should have, Dak has all of the leverage in the world. There's a no trade clause in his deal. There's a no franchise tag de facto clause. The way it's not, there's a no franchise tag clause, basically. He has the leverage. So there's really no reason for you to come to Dak with a 2-year non-guaranteed extension for him to say, yes, I'll take that. So your options are allow it to ride, kick that can down the road again, and potentially set us up for another rebuilding year next year. Okay. Move on now. Does seem unlikely. I can't recall the last time a team was like, yeah, we should move on from our second-team All-Pro QB. Playoff disappointment, of course, allowed here. Or you do what I would lean towards is something along this line: hire one of your better head coach candidates, fire Mike McCarthy, do a new deal for Dak. Hopefully, it's not the highest paid quarterback in history. That would be a very Cowboys thing, I suppose. And give yourself that 2, 3, 4, whatever time of length it is. And if you don't have that playoff success you need, then you move on and you actually rebuild. That's what I would do. Because I thought about this before, because I don't trust this team come playoff time. That's not like a home run answer, but it's kind of, I think, your options. Jimmy Productions, I actually predicted the Packers to beat us. Hey, I appreciate that. I'd say I wish you were wrong on that front. I'll be honest, I felt really good going into the game. Like I felt like you're gonna win. This game get out of hand quickly. I never saw a blowout coming. I really truly did not. Now today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Here's why I love Prize Picks. It's just you against the numbers. You are not battling thousands of other players. There's no pros and sharks and sharps, etc. that you got to beat. You can mix and match sports, although we are getting closer to not exactly having the ability to fully mix and match those sports these days. The reboot policy keeps your picks in play in the event of injury, and the flex play, just got to get 2 out of 3 right. We will have later on in the show some divisional and wild card Prize Picks selections for you guys as part of that. But go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Links in the comments and the description of today's show. Money Mitch Mob, is Micah a leader? I never see him rallying the troops when things get tough on defense. Where's the fire? Where's the sense of pride? I don't know. I'm frustrated. He is young. You don't always see a bunch of young players take over that leadership role, but frankly, my answer is he's not one of your true. He wasn't a playoff captain. There's your answer. He was not a playoff captain for you. That seems significant. So I think that's important to know. But I'm frustrated too. He hasn't beaten the podcast Parsons allegations yet. No allegations have been beaten. Hawkeyes. I live in 49er territory, so my friends are having fun messing with me. Mike needs to go. We need change, damn it. Sorry for that, Hawkeyes. And I agree. You do need change. You can't just do this and again and expect things to. You can't run it back and be like, oh, this year will be different. Why? No evidence of being different. You have to have actual change here. Roberto Paul. Jimmy Johnson called it embarrassing. Packers was strike 3. Niners and Bills were embarrassing too. McCarthy and staff have had 3 embarrassing games. Yeah. And they were all similar. Like they all got real tight in those games early and just couldn't. They got punched in the mouth and could not respond, which is crazy. Like it was the same game 3 times. I guess credit, probably not. At least the offense did something positive in the second half, but it was too little, too late. Your defense couldn't do anything. Maybe you could have had the second version of that Chargers-Jags playoff game where Lawrence threw 4 first-half interceptions, and then the defense shut out basically the opposing team. That didn't even close to happening. They didn't get a stop again until 5 minutes to go in the game. It was over. A.J. Mandel, beef up the O-line, get a solid running back to get some types of run game. Hopefully add linebackers. That would help the defense, but we need to be disciplined and consistent coaching. Look, I agree. I think you need to get bigger linebackers, at least guys that can fit the run. You don't have to be the world's biggest player to be a good run stopper, Like, Roquan Smith is 6'1", 235-ish. Like, that's not that big. Still 10 pounds over some of your other box players. But I think you do need more disciplinedness. You do need more attention to detail. It's been a lacking issue for years for this Cowboys team. You have no ground game. Your running backs, again, averaged under 4 yards per carry. The advanced numbers look fine for the ground game because when your quarterback scrambles and the receivers get touches, it's actually pretty productive. But your straight running game is terrible. It has been for years in these types of games. They can't lean on it, and they try to, and it doesn't work. And now you're in third down, and if the quarterback's not playing out of his mind on third down, you're cooked. You can win 10 games the rest of doing that. You can't win in the postseason doing that consistently. You just can't. CT. Call me not a real fan. F it. I've been as loyal through it all. If head coach and quarterback isn't dumped, a real change has happened. I'm no longer a fan. I'm switching teams to my home state. F Jerry Jones and his family. Or I guess and the family like Stephen Jones as well. I think you got to move on from at least one of them. There's just no way it's going to work as a unit. There's just no way. Not Jeremy Chugsburner. I've already done 2 mock drafts. Pace yourself. It's a long offseason now. Chris B, NFC's going to get better too with new rookie QBs. And you've got, I think Jordan Love is him, by the way. I will say, concerning note, from an efficiency standpoint per play, literally the greatest playoff game ever. Because he only threw it 21 times and had all those passing yards and touchdowns. By the way, the opposing quarterbacks, like teams that have played other quarterbacks, the highest 2 allowed are the opposing quarterbacks facing Matt Ryan and Dak Prescott. Well, guess who's been your defensive coordinator for both of those teams the most? That's a troubling trend there. Chris B, not confident in Jerry firing Mike McCarthy. I am reminded, and this is where I'm at. I remember what happened after the Cowboys-Rams playoff game. Remember that game? It was really disappointing that they just couldn't stop anyone on defense. The quarterback played better in that game, to be fair. They were doing some questionable coaching stuff. We're trying to establish that ground game stuff. Jerry wanted to fire Garrett after that game. He wanted him gone. And he got talked down by Stephen Jones and company. I wonder if something similar is going to happen this time around, and if they'll be able to talk Jerry down. We'll see. What do you guys want to do with Dan Quinn, by the way? K for keep him, L for let him leave, whether it be go be the head coach, or just F for fire him now. I'd say L or F for me. It is a very emotional response, to be fair. But I think we're in the 24-hour window, so I'll allow it. It's just not good enough. Like, for all the understandable and even at times fair stuff we say about the offense and the quarterback, your defense has been actually terrible against good offenses. Like, they are allowing nearly 30 points per game against good offenses the past year and a half. That is so bad. You're not going to win football games doing that. And yeah, let's say, oh yeah, 14 points were the offense's fault. Sure, they still allowed 35. And frankly, that defense quit. That defense quit. They folded. They got punched in the mouth early. The offense came out in the second half. Again, garbage time, sure. And they at least fought and tried a little bit. They looked better on offense. Garbage time, yes. They were at least scoring points. The defense didn't. If I told you Dallas scored 32 points, we would have said, wow, we won. No, you got blown out. Your offense didn't play nearly well enough in the first half to win that game, but your defense didn't play well at any point to win that game. That's why it's a team loss. I hot take here as your votes come in. Hot take. I would have preferred it if it had just been the quarterback. I would have preferred it if it was just the quarterback was dog shit. We lost 21-3, and the pick six and INT happened. I kind of would have preferred that because then I know what the solution is. Okay, I got to go find my Stafford. I got to go find my Goff Stafford trade. And it wasn't that. It was everything. Your O-line didn't do a great job of run blocking. You didn't really run the ball that effectively. Quarterback made some really bad mistakes early. They went back to their tight zone running scheme and bad spacing and not motion on offense. Your defense, again, it wasn't even just the ground game. You actually stopped the run pretty good in the first half, but Jordan Love cooked you. It was all bad. It was all bad. A lot more super chats here from Vanquish Time. We can't do anything in the playoffs with Mike. Been 3 years now. It's not, it's not a bad coach. 12 wins and a playoff loss isn't bad, but when that's all you get, it's not enough. From Justin, if it was up to you, who's the next head coach? I would personally like to try someone new, like the Texans OC or Lions OC. That's Bobby Slowick, Ben Johnson. I am down there. I'm fine with that. This is going to be asked a lot. The one thing I want is I want to do a real coaching search. I do. You have not done a real coaching search since Wade Phillips. So if you go out there, let's say you fire Mike, you interview Dan Quinn as a favor or whatever, you interview your Rooney Rule qualifiers, and you interview Belichick and one other guy and hire somebody. So that's not a real search. You need to cast a wide net. 4 or 5 interviews is not going to cut it. You need to do a real coaching search. Otherwise, you're not opening yourself up to the possibilities of finding the next great coach. Because the things that make you a great head coach are not necessarily the same things that make you a great OC and vice versa. That's tough. It's tough. Michael Sutton, what happened to the pass rush second half of the season? Were quarterbacks in the ball faster, or were we too worried about the run? Your pass rush kind of went MIA. This is the thing that bothers me, right? We had talked going into this game like, hey, Jordan Love is really good against the blitz. His numbers are up there with the best quarterbacks in the NFL about beating the blitz. It's been really impressive so far this year. They blitzed him 8 of his 21 dropbacks, almost 40% higher than he normally had been. They didn't really get any pressure on him. He completed 75% of his passes for 120 yards and 2 scores. They kept doing blitzes, and I didn't get it. But that's just that game. Oh, look, the big issue was the game scripts weren't in your favor, right? Commanders was. He had a couple sacks there. Lions was not a positive game script. Bills not a positive game script. Bills was not. Lions wasn't. Packers wasn't. For whatever reason, again, I think it's a coaching issue, this team, and the defense in this case in particular, can't play without a positive game script. If they can't pin their ears back, they can't get home, and they can't have enough success. That's not good. Ecuador, man, you can't win paying Dak 40. How do you win paying more? I will say, A, you have one. B, I think coaching and lack of aggression with your offseason moves, knowing you actually have more money available to spend if you want to, have been big issues from that perspective too. The salary cap has also gone up significantly. Whatever that number looks like, 50, 55, 45, I don't know, all fictional numbers at this stage. That's very, very similar. And you've also not really paid Dak 40. You've paid him 24.5 or 23.5 on average the past 3 years. In fact, the franchise tag year was the highest list. So the money number is very scary, and I totally get that. But my alternative is if you're not winning with this top 10 quarterback, how are you going to win getting worse at quarterback? Or do you want to rebuild? And that I think is a valid path you can pursue. At least that is an idea and a plan. Because my concern is it's just fire this guy, move on from that guy, and the answer is it doesn't matter, but it does. And so far, like all the comments, at least have ideas, and I really do appreciate that. Jimmy, who do you want to win, the Packers or the 49ers? I guess Packers. Well, I think if the Packers win, you feel better about it. I don't think they're going to. Sam Brown, let's play the hypothetical game. Does Dallas get clowned on national TV for the entire country if Diggs plays? Thanks. Probably. And I will also say, if losing one corner, no matter how good he is, totally destroys your entire defense, your coaching is bad. Which might be true. I think it would have helped, but they were playing more zone, although I think it was just such blown assignments in man that it looked like zone at times too. There was more zone as well, from as near as I can tell. And everything was bad. I don't think one player was going to say, you could have put Mahomes out there, like prime Mahomes with his best playmakers. Could have put Brady out there. I don't think it was going to be enough. Neither phase of the ball, or any of the three phases of the ball, played nearly good enough. Jimmy, I will always be loyal to the Cowboys, winning close to rooting for my second favorite team and wearing their gear. I get it. Again, there's a reason we call the thumbnail Therapy Hour for the Cowboys. This is a safe spot to vent, complain, or whatever. Don't fight too much in the comments section. Football or pizza? I would love to have Belichick or Harbaugh, but can they put up with Jerry? Or would Jerry finally to take the back seat? So Jerry does do less these days. Problem is, it's Steven still heavily involved, and he ain't any better. And I think you're right. Like if you can hire one of Harbaugh or Belichick, Harbaugh says he's open to doing non-GM stuff or letting the team pick the GM. That's fine, but Harbaugh can be a bit surly from a potential standpoint there. If Belichick says I want immense player personnel control, I don't think Dallas is going to sign off on that. I think he can help your defense out. He's still a really good defensive mind. I think his discipline and attention to detail, talking about Belichick, would be very good. Who's your offensive coordinator? Because if the answer is McDaniels, Bill O'Brien, you sure about that? Got to have a plan. That's why the interview is important. You can't just hire one guy. Or interview one guy and hire him. Jimmy, I don't wear Cowboys gear during the season because I think I'm superstitious and it might affect the Cowboys winning or losing. It's been 27 years, Jimmy. At this point, it's probably not our fault if and when they lose. Zach Taylor, hopefully season ticket holders didn't or don't renew. Hit the franchise where it hurts, or that will change with the way the Jones family operates, but it might be too late. If you had told Jerry Jones, hey, you're going to win 12 games every year and you get to host a playoff game, he'd be really happy. He'd be really happy. That's why they haven't been aggressive, because they don't want to have a down year. They don't want to have down years and rebuild. I'd rather be a bit more aggressive. Aaron, Mike needs to go. Jerry should not be the GM. I don't know what Dan Quinn needs to do. Dak played bad, so did everyone else. That was not all on Dak. I say keep him. Pretty much where I land. Now you've got bigger picture things you got to sort out in terms of the contract and what you want to do there and how you manage everything. And that goes for other players as well. Like, what are you going to do with Michael Gallup? Kind of like the inverse, right? Gallup was bad this year. But he played good down the stretch against Green Bay. Do you keep him now? We'll talk about cut cannons as part of today's show later on here. I think being upset, angry, mad attack is fine. He's the first to tell you he was terrible in that game. The numbers look good, but we know those. We watched the game. We know those numbers are fake. It was all garbage time. Now, maybe you could have pulled off that ridiculous Jags-Chargers comeback if the defense, could have stopped me in that game, which I don't think they could have, frankly. But you needed your quarterback to play like a second-team All-Pro that he had been this year, and he didn't. And that's a failure, and it's really disappointing, and it's concerning. From Mike Beasy, the AV Geek, we're the only team with a GM from the 20th century. Spot the lie. AJ Medell, no matter what they do, I'm still going to want to go to training camp and watch every game. I'm loyal no matter what, but why? Who knows? They don't deserve my loyalty, but they got it. I would agree. I get it. Therapy hour, baby. Sean Fripp, it's time to rebuild. The O-line, best two players are old. Smith and Martin, blow this crap up. Again, I'll say this here. You are not going to, I don't think you're going to see Jerry rebuild. Jerry doesn't have enough time to punt on 2 or 3 years. Now, we can argue if that's the right decision or not. I think there are good arguments about it, but I don't think they're going to. I mean, here's the root of my issue. You had 9 first or second team All-Pros this season. Who played like a first or second team All-Pro in that game? Wasn't Dak. Wasn't Lamb. CeeDee Lamb had 2 bad drops early on. Didn't look comfortable out there. He let Jair Alexander get in his head a little bit. Can't have that happening. Tyron's allowed 2 sacks. He wasn't terrible, but he allowed 2 sacks. Zach Martin, I thought, played pretty well, but, it's Zach Martin, Micah Parsons, MIA. Drew a holding call. Great. Dropped into coverage twice. Why? I don't know. Deron Bland, MIA. Brandon Aubrey, missed a kick. Brian Anger didn't actually punt that much. So where were your All-Pros at? And when all your All-Pros play bad, again, I come back to coaching. AJ, biggest reason why we lost to good teams because of the defense. I'm done with Quinn. I got to pull up the numbers again, but against I like to use EPA because it's a good metric for how good your offense outside of the defense impact is. Last year and a half, the top 10, top 15 offenses, even just the above average ones you've played, you've allowed almost 30 points per game. That does not include this last game. That's just not going to cut it. It's not. You were never going to win with either side playing the way that you did. For the totality of the game, since your offense woke up in the second half a little bit in garbage time, defense was terrible. They couldn't do anything. They got gashed in all phases. Abbas, as much as Mike, I put equal blame on Steven. I agree. I very much agree. Chris B, you really want to pay Dak $60 million? I don't. I don't want to pay him 60. I will say this too. That number I said it before, Chris. The number rises every time. And the $60 million number comes from, frankly, non-NFL insiders going, it could be 60. With the sourcing being, I made it up. Last one was 55. We'll give him more because he's got the leverage, and if he wins MVP and goes on a playoff run, those things didn't happen. I don't want to pay Dak $60 million. I also know that even if I do pay him whatever that number is, or whatever number you're comfortable paying him at, it's a fake number, and you can push back that money. At some point, you will have to rebuild. Whether it's this year, 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, whatever, you'll have to rebuild. If you want to do it now, okay, I'm in. Tank a season, give Lance a shot, go get a top 5 pick. Or stay aggressive. And that means you're going to have to pay Dak. Because there are no other viable alternatives out there of winning now, but with a different quarterback. Who are you going to get? You're not getting into a top 3 pick to draft one of those young QBs. If you want to draft a QB, it has to be done organically tanking. Because otherwise, you're trading away picks and assets. You need to fix your defense that's bad right now. And your ground game that can't get anything going. It's not again because it wasn't just the quarterback; it was everything. There's Kirk Cousins is not going to fix this team. Jimmy Garoppolo, who's on the trade market, going to go trade for Tua, who has been even worse in this exact thing we're upset about. That's the in a bubble. I totally get it. Trying to fix and solve things, not as easy for me. Chris B, Jerry going to act mad for a week and then do nothing. I will be very concerned, and I will be very upset if they do not fire Mike. It has to. Epic Redbeard, get rid of them. Get rid of them all, but keep the DB, special teams coaches. See a ton of growth on teams and DB. Keep Dak. Pick up Trey's 5th year. Let Pollard walk. Get a stud running back. I will say, Trey Lance's 5th year, I think, has already been declined. Let me double check that. Pretty sure it's already been declined. I'm going to do a quick Google search on that. No, it has not been picked up yet. Also, it doesn't matter because the 5th year option is like $20 million, and I'm not doing that. I'm not picking up the 5th year option for a quarterback who hasn't been active for 2 years. He hasn't been. Like almost two years now, I should say. Pollard walking. Hey, if Pollard wants to come back for 2 years, $4 million, sure. Beyond that, just draft money. Don't pay backs. Stand by on that one. Chris B, I'm ready to blow it up with the new head coach and quarterback, but Jerry won't. I don't think he's going to. Safe space to ask for it, but I don't think it's going to happen. Dark Bloodin 01. Did anyone else not feel comfortable with this team, even with the regular season wins? A lot of what happened yesterday was present in the regular season. I agree. That's also our trauma speaking. And our trauma is not wrong because we've seen it happen a bunch before. I mean, that Bills game reminded me so much of the Rams-Cowboys playoff game where they just got dog-walked and couldn't stop the run. The Niners, Bills, Packers games were all kind of similar this year. They were surprised. They got punched in the mouth and couldn't respond. They've been that way for a decade. It's frustrating. Thomas, Belichick, most hated coach and most hated team, super villain arc incoming. As long as the super villain wins, sure. Again, I will say in general, the more likely outcome of whatever changes you make, the more likely outcome is you do get worse. Because it's easier to go from 12 wins to 9 wins than go from 12 wins to 14 wins or win 2 playoff games or whatever. But that's a risk you have to take. Pug Racer, only option to move forward is to fire Mike if Dak should prove he can do it. If not, we draft a QB in 25. Jerry Jones knows time is short. Here's my counter to that, which I get it. I get it. What happens if the exact same thing happens this season? Or what happened last season? Quarterback plays at, let's say he's second team all-pro again. And you fold up short in the postseason, whether it's the quarterback's fault or not, in the wild card or divisional round. Now what do? Because you're not going to be drafting in quarterback range, and he's going to be a free agent. And Dak might say, you know what? I don't want to deal with the media. You guys have thrown me under the bus 1,000 times. I'm out. I'm going to go somewhere, I don't know. I'm going to go to Miami with Mike McDaniel, and they're going to pay me $67 million a year because it's a bidding war, and I get whatever I want. And now you're going to have to re-sign Trey Lance and then tank for a year. I would say you should have enough information to make your decision. Does truly what was one bad half of playoff football that killed you override the other 17 games in the regular season? Or is that one half more indicative of what you think the ceiling is for this team? You should be able to make up your mind. Got to figure out the head coach first. By the way, if it's Bill, he's keeping Dak. Bill likes Dak a lot. It's Vrabel, who knows? He's not really an offensive guy. If it's Harbaugh, who knows? He's a squirrely one. I think you got to make up your mind now. Either rebuild or go all in for 3 or 4 more years and then rebuild. That's what I would do. Money Mitch Mob. Teams are winning with less talent at quarterback. We need coaches that maximize talent, not ask that to keep bailing you out. You can't live in 3rd and long. I would also agree with this. I don't think any of us would really take Jared Goff as a better quarterback than Dak, right? Jared Goff's having success. The Lions have better coaching than you do. The Packers have better coaching than you do. If you were to rank, where does Dak rank? Where does McCarthy rank relative to their positions and spots? I think if we're being honest and objective and non-emotional, Dak's somewhere in that top 10. Maybe he's not second like he was this year, but he's in the top 10. Is Mike in the top 10? I don't think so. Is he in the top 15? Maybe? I was doing this math in my head a couple weeks ago, and it was like fringe top 15. I think that's your bigger issue, right? Chris B, 2-5 in playoffs with Dak. Is it really going to change? It might not. There is a very real chance it's just Romo 2.0. I would also say, how many good defensive performances have you had? You've had multiple playoff games now, outside of the one game against the Niners, which are your own enemy. All those other playoff losses, your defense was historically bad in all of them. They allowed like top 5 percentile performances. In the case of Love, literally the most efficient game ever. I wish it was just one thing to fix. It's not, and that's what's terrifying to me. Jimmy, Pollard is on a workhorse. They're got to go with him. I'm actually okay with letting go and drafting Blake Corum or Trey Benson. That's the Michigan running back and the Florida State back. Sure. I also don't want to draft a running back early. I don't think investing in those guys is smart because you're investing too much at a position that, as I think we saw this year, so dependent on other positions. Pollard was actually among the league leaders in broken tackles in the back half of the season. The running game wasn't good because he was bringing them in the backfield. That's a bad sign. But again, I'm not paying him big money either. Will Marshall, zone was confusing when our D has been man all season. Why no adjustments? Something was off. Sabotage-ish, even didn't recognize that team at all. I've seen a few of the conspiracy theories. I get it. It's the denial stage of grief. Will, again, you're right. A couple things. I believe all the touchdowns you got beat on were man plays, like man blitzes and stuff. It is concerning when I think some of those man plays looked like zone because your blown assignment was that bad. Like, it was such a bad coverage lapse, it looks like zone, but they did run more zone, which I don't get. I feel like Dan was like, I'm going to flip it on now. They're not going to expect zone if you're playing so much man this year, which you got cutesy in a game you didn't need to get cutesy with. You kept blitzing when you have a quarterback who beats the blitz really well. Like, these are things like we have the data to prove. So how do they not know it? I don't know. They did it against the Niners a few seasons ago too in the postseason. They just came out unprepared. How? Mike again said that we weren't ready to play. How, Mike? That is literally your only job as a head coach. He's a play caller too, sure. Your number one job is to have your team prepared to play, and they weren't. Bad. Stone Cold 10X, defense is all about scheme. Quinn's scheme doesn't work. Let me phrase it to you this way. Would Dan Quinn be a popular name if he didn't have Micah Parsons being a game dominator at times? He kind of lost that against the Packers. Is it Micah and some players, or is it Dan? I don't know. I don't know. Epic Redbeard. Let Pollard walk. Trade Gallup. Get a stud back in the draft. Get Hogs up front. O-line, D-line. Get in the corner. Fire them all. Keep the DB coach. Teams coach, how would you, where to go? Oh, I got to scroll back here. So it's team in a Super Bowl team. We'll do a perfect offseason plan. My contact's bothering me. Sorry, guys. I wish it were one thing. I think culture change is probably pretty high up on that list, which again, hey, your owner is a big part of that culture. If the owner ain't tripping, we don't care. Jalen Smith, the most true thing he ever said in his entire life. Can't have that. Roberto Polt, a real coaching search, but no 70-year-old coaches. Stuck with Dak, sorry. Coach run game and run D coaches get help with the best running game. Draft accordingly. Get him help with the best ground game. I don't even need the best ground game. I need a passable ground game. Or maybe that's a bad phrase. A workable ground game. Not one that, you're going to sit yourself up third and long and they kept running on 2nd and 10 again. I hate that. Like, your offense at its best was we're going to attack downfield. And Mike's like, we're going to run the ball. Really? I just didn't get it. Taha Ahmed, what players for sure are gone? JK, TP, DA, Biotish. I think Neville Gallimore's gone. I don't want to pay Biotish like $10 million for okay to low-end good play. I'm not keeping J-Ron Curse. Sorry. He can complain about it on Twitter if he needs to. Powered it like a very, 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 very cheap deal, sure. But I need to invest in my O-line, plus he needs somebody else alongside of him. Armstrong's probably gone, and that's okay. Armstrong is kind of indicative of a lot of your defense. The numbers look okay, but there are games he's making zero impact. He's part of your front-runner culture issue. Jimmy says, I like Kingsley, Suamataia, and Graham Barton. That is the BYU offensive tackle and the Duke offensive lineman. I like Barton a lot for this team. They do love their position flex, and he's got that in spades. I think he can play anywhere on the left side of the offensive line. Andrew Vanderpool. Personally, I love to have Harbaugh. We need is a culture change head coach. Garrett's a puppet. McCarthy's a puppet. I'm actually scared that Jerry won't fire Mike McCarthy. I hope that news comes tomorrow. I don't think it's going to come today. I hope it comes tomorrow. I hope that they fire him. Will it? I don't know. Ecuador man AOG. I'll take 9-8 NFC Championship team than 12-5 and choke. Oh, I completely agree. I think we all would. I don't know how you get there, though. I don't know how you pull it off without making the actual type of aggressive moves that this ownership group doesn't like doing. Alumni. Tom, I've been saying it for years. Dak is not the guy. It's time to clean house and fire Mike. Dan and get rid of pick 6 Dak. He is just like Cousins. These stats are almost the same. So my counterpoint here, alumni, is are you going to rebuild? Oh, so he does say clean house. So, okay, so I assume you mean rebuild them. That's fine. Also, Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. Romo is a good quarterback. I tweeted it out years ago. People always get mad at me when I say it. The Romo Cowboys and the Dak Cowboys are the exact same team. Even though their numbers are not that different. There are different reasons each year why it all fails. It's the same team. So, Cousins is going to get a massive deal coming off an Achilles because he's a fringe top 10 quarterback, and you can't find those guys easily unless you want to embrace rebuild, which is kind of think of what you're going for, and that's fine. That's a plan. It is a plan. I don't think it's a plan Jerry's going to do, but at least you have something in mind to address and have solutions. You do run a massive risk of going back to the Hutchinson-Quincy Carter era, but you should at least think about it. Sam, maybe I only notice it before games. I watch Dak's bench. He's either fist bump the bench or shaking his leg and sweating profusely. Especially in these games where his love looks poised. I got cut off again. Shoot. The whole game. Well, he's always fist bumping the bench. That's kind of like his thing pregame. Dak's also always been a sweater. He's a sweaty guy. If you haven't noticed that, that's just kind of how his physiology is. I wouldn't read too much of that. What's more concerning to me is he looked rattled on offense in that first half. In a game, there was really no reason to be rattled. And my theory, for lack of a better phrase here, is I wonder if they didn't, Dak and Lamb too, because Lamb looked kind of off as well. I wonder if they didn't have faith in the game plan going in. And that's why they looked a little bit off. Because the game plan, I don't think was very good. It wasn't push the ball downfield, attack the seams, feed Lamb. It was, we're going to run the ball and do short passing game. They went with the things that McCarthy likes, which I think we learned pretty clearly in the Niners, Bills, and more games. Those aren't good. That's not good enough. And that's all speculation. But that's kind of the way it felt to me. Michael Subman, how do we have 3 all-pro linemen, but they can't run block? I will continue to say this. Your run scheme was dog shit. It was not good. It wasn't. It was terrible. They didn't run duo, which is like the meta of ground games right now. They weren't doing outside zone stuff that actually fits Pollard well. I keep calling it the tight zone because that's what it was. inside handoffs over and over that doesn't fit their scheme or any of it. Like they weren't calling good plays. Like they weren't maximizing their own talent, and they weren't calling the best run plays. I mean, remember when they had some success on the ground doing that inside toss play, and then didn't do it again? It's a failure of the self-scouting of this coaching staff to not be able to understand what plays actually work for them. It's really concerning. That's why they have to go. Sherman, do you see Zach Martin, Tyron Smith, Tank, or other vets retiring, leaving? Could be a long road of rebuilding ahead. I mean, as long as you have the top 10 quarterback, you'll at least be in the postseason. Whether or not you get beyond that is a fair question. Tyron might. I think Zach's going to come back. I think Tank comes back, but you probably want to at least adjust his contract as well. Gout might not come back. Curse might not come back either. Chris B., sorry for anything. I just don't know where we need to go. No, that's the point, Chris. That's why it says therapy hour, which is going to be like therapy hours here. I get it. I totally get it. Pug Racer, if Bill, Vrabel, Harbaugh get hired, who will be the OC? Let's see who they want. My solution is to go to the Shanahan tree, or at least the McVay tree might be a good fit, because the McVay tree allows the quarterback more pre-snap power than the Shanahan tree does, as opposed to like post-snap adjustments, which I think isn't as good for your current guy. I'd go to that tree, and I'd throw money at one of them and say, come be my OC. You want to spend, Jerry? There's no salary cap on coaches. Thomas, I am nervous to see if Micah streams today, and what is he going to say? He becomes a prima donna. What does his future look like in Dallas? I think he needs some discipline. Honestly, he can't do the podcast next year. He just can't. It's a bad look. I get he wants to be a media guy. That's fine. It's media Micah and podcast Parsons. Okay, he makes plenty of good points on the show. He's actually pretty decent at it. But I just think it's a distraction. I think it opens the door to he's not paying enough attention. Blah blah blah. I can't. Gotta make a change there. I think it. Let me put it this way: is Bill Belichick going to let Micah Parsons do a podcast? No, he's not. Is Vrabel? No. Ownership allowed him to. I'm not a fan. Tennis ball smack my nuts. I'm sorry, everyone. I was a Cowboys fan after the Niners. I foresaw the future, and this is terrible. Cowboys need to rebuild, lose the year, fire McCarthy and Dan, Jerry Jones, F off, you limp D. Therapy hour, baby. From Roy, do you bring Gilmore and Cooks back? Go get Derrick Henry. Look, sure. Cooks is under contract, by the way. I don't know where this Cooks is a free agent stuff. I've seen it before. He's under contract. I don't know where that stuff started. Gilmore, I'm open to it. See what he wants to do. I'm cheap enough? Yes, I'm in on Derrick Henry. But if you don't fix your offensive line in your scheme, it's not going to matter. Henry's getting up there in age. It has to be a cheap, short deal. I'm down with it. It offers you the battering ram stuff. This team seems to want at the running back spot, but they didn't add any of them, which again is weird. But I don't think if you plop current Derrick Henry into the offense, you fix your ground game overnight. It requires more than that. Micah Parsons, talk about it. Any chance to call Atlanta for a Dak trade, assuming he waives? What's the package look like? The issue here is if you trade. Let me pull up the numbers here. You can call, I guess. Dak has a lot of leverage, because also this is true too. If you are Dak Prescott and you're being traded, you have control. You're going to want to go to the best spot possible, and you're not going to want your new team to give up a bunch of assets for you and make your new team worse. That doesn't make sense for him. So that complicates things on that front. But maybe he still waives it. You have to do it before June 1st to get help right now. You're eating $62 million in dead cap this year. So more than it would be if you extended him. A huge issue. The package should be a decent package, but I think your plan would have to be a rebuild. And you're probably not drafting a quarterback with that pick. You're eating the dead money for a year. You're probably moving on from other aging vets, like you should probably just shop Tank Lawrence too. Tank's my guy, but you're rebuilding, so what's the point of having an old defensive end who's not going to be around and taking up a big amount of your money? You eat it and you trade him there. If you trade Dak, it has to be a rebuild. By the way, I thought about this because, like, the Dolphins are having similar drama right now. Like, oh, what do we do? Where do we figure out and find our new head coach? Whatever. Like, we have to pull off our own Stafford Goff trade. Their Stafford would be Dak. That's what they should do. I don't know if Dallas would do it because, again, you're rebuilding and getting a worse quarterback. Roberto Paul, draft strategy. 2024 O-line. Provides a much better running back class. Okay. That's QB in the mid-rounds, but with 10K yard credentials. Not a lot of those. Also, what are you going to do with Trey Lance then? I don't think they're going to draft a quarterback this year because they used that pick on Lance, would be my guess. Quay South Dallas says, I'm tired of this shit. That's why it's therapy hour. Jackie O. Olden says, trade Dak for Russ, sign Belichick, sign Derrick Henry, draft defense and offensive line. I can get on board outside of the first one. I'm not trading Dak for Russ. If it's not good enough to work with this quarterback, why is it good enough to work with the worst one? Russ isn't good. Sean Payton hates him. Like, Russ doesn't execute the offense. And I think it's very clear that the current version of Russ is just not very good. So I don't think that's a viable solution. Also, Belichick loves Dak. Like, I think you can go back and look at some of the quotes Belichick's in. You know Belichick likes a player when he goes on and on and on about something. Like that's the stuff that he likes. He'll go on and on about special teams because he loves teams, right? He's a big fan of Dak. Chris B. McCarthy is severely worse than a McVay, Shanahan, LaFleur. I agree. Dan Quinn is 0-6 against those coaches, by the way, in the postseason. That tree. It's the same tree. Probably a good tree to pull from on offense, isn't it? Quentin, thoughts on Eric Bieniemy as a possible head coach or OC option? I don't like Bieniemy that much. Not as a head coach. I'm out there. Half the league interviewed and they said no. That should tell you something. The Commanders' offense wasn't very good this year. Like, they hit some big plays, but they the entire year, they needed a quick games solution. And their OC never delivered one. Quarterback gets some blame, sure, I guess, too. I don't think he's better than what else you can find out there. Thomas, feel like Dan Quinn signed elsewhere before Sunday he quit. The defense was terrible. And that's what's so concerning is we've seen elements of this before, and it got even worse in that game. Roland Herrera, $2. Thank you, Roland. I appreciate that. Chris B says, don't really want Belichick, but anything but Mike McCarthy. I'm kind of in a similar boat. Like, I can't run it back with Mike at this stage. I just can't. It's not going to work. It's not. Landon seems evidence of him in big games. I know he's held a lot, but with his podcast, I think he's all talk and focuses too much on the media. Fire MM. Fire FM in the comments, or fire Mike. Yep. They can't beat the front-runner allegations yet. Everyone. That's why I think it's a coaching issue, because they all do it. It's a culture issue. It's a Jerry issue. But I can't fire the owner. So I got to try to fire somebody else instead. Can we get to 300 likes on today's live show? Hit that like button for me right now. We're at 287. Quick note, by the way. Cowboys signed a few players to futures deals. Earl Bostic, Josh Butler, Princeton Fant, Buddy Johnson, Darrell Johnson, Racey McMath, Jalen Cropper, Sheldrick, Redwine. Formality stuff there. Nothing too impactful. All right, coming up on today's live show. Yeah, we've been live for an hour, and it was a therapy hour. I wasn't lying to you. Cowboys news and rumors. Cowboys mailbag. We'll put Chris B. Super outside of the mailbag. And cut candidates as well. Our first chance at that one, which there's not as many names as there normally is here as part of today's show. So we'll break that all down here as part of the live show. No loop. Timing's not going to allow for it there. It'd be too long. Here we go. Oh, I feel bad saying that. I didn't even do that on purpose. So be it. Cowboys Report coming up live here right now. Another year, another painful end to the Cowboys. Isn't this one maybe more painful than all the rest? Give me one word for how you're feeling right now. Is it depressed? That's my one word. Sad, angry, whatever. Sound off for me in the comment section right now. Let's talk Mike McCarthy. The Cowboys, again, terrible performance. Didn't show up. They weren't even close. And it was a game they had no business losing. They were a better team than Green Bay, and you would have never known based on what we just saw in that performance. And I'll say it before and I'll say it again. When everything is bad, it is a coaching issue. And I had kind of poo-pooed the Belichick stories, whatever. Like, if the Cowboys get blown out and they get embarrassed, we can revisit that. They got blown out and they got embarrassed. It's time to revisit that. Mike McCarthy has won 12 straight games in 3 straight years. Never been done in Dallas. It's really impressive. But when it's loss, and you go 1-3 in the postseason, that's not good enough. And at a certain point, we have hit the ceiling of this team with Mike McCarthy. The Cowboys laid an egg again. They did not show up. This is twice now. The Niners 2 years ago, and then the Packers here. They were at home, and they got punched in the mouth, and they never responded. They were sloppy everywhere. It was everything that was bad in this game. And I believe that when everything is bad, when the offense is terrible, the defense, probably when special teams is bad, I mean, you had the ball at your own 22 on average. That's horrible starting field position. That is a coaching issue. That's a bad thing. For this team, for this organization, it's all about the playoffs. It's all about, can they make enough noise? Yeah, records and wins are great. You're not terrible. You're not trash. But be more than a disappointment. The coach scared again. And he went back to the stuff that he likes. Going to run the football. We're going to run on 2nd and 10. We're going to not do motion, do short passing game. And the offense didn't respond to that. They got better once they opened it up in garbage time. And the team played scared. That's just not going to work. So I think you have to fire Mike. What do you guys think? Do you want to fire Mike McCarthy as the Cowboys head coach? It'll be the pinned comment on today's video. So if the ad comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. Y for yes or N for no. Now, I don't think, and I could be wrong on this, I didn't have a great data sorter, but I don't think there's one that's happened to. I don't believe a coach has been fired after 3 straight 12-win seasons. I think you have to make Mike McCarthy the first to do it. You have to make history here. He's not good enough. This is your best path to being better next year. You need real change in this offseason. You cannot just run it back and expect any of us to believe in you. It's not going to happen. Let's be honest here. Where does Mike McCarthy rank among head coaches? If you were power ranking the head coaches, he's not top 10, right? He can't be. Is he even top 15? Maybe. I think you can find better options out there. Now, you run the risk of being worse. I will acknowledge all of that. And you still have uncertainty if you do make that change. I think we've hit our ceiling with this team as constructed. I need real change. If and when that change happens, we will have you covered. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/@CowboysTV. Hopefully the next live show is breaking Mike McCarthy fired. If it's not, we'll therapy our way through it. Hit that sub button for me right now. I think for what Jerry wants, a veteran head coach makes sense. Jerry doesn't want to rebuild. That's not what he wants to do. Well, Bill Belichick's out there. Now, this is not the same Bill Belichick that you could have hired, 5-10 years ago. There's fair points he made about the whole, outside of Tom Brady stuff, although his defenses were so good in New England. I think he can bring you some stability. He can help change the culture in a way you need to, although it can't just be Patriot Way 7.0, because it hasn't worked anywhere outside of Brady. It doesn't work elsewhere. There needs to be a hybrid here. It cannot be Bill O'Brien as the offensive coordinator. It can be Bill in charge of your defense. That's fine. You need to have Will McClay run the draft. Bill's a bad drafter. He misses a lot. If you just let Bill be the head coach and defensive influencer guy and find a good offensive coordinator, I think that can work. I'm also open to Mike Vrabel. I think if you're ranking head coaches, isn't Vrabel pretty high on that list? Now, there were issues in Tennessee. He had some personnel input and wanted more and didn't get it, and he and his owner didn't get along in the end. They also didn't communicate, and that was a real problem. I wonder how well Vrabel and Jerry would get along. You also got to figure out your offense coordinator stuff. That's a common thread on all of these. All three guys I'm talking about right here. OC is a question mark, but he's aggressive on fourth downs when he needs to be. He's very good in that area. I appreciate that. He gets the most out of his players and team. When was the last time we said, hey, a Cowboys coach got the most out of his team? Jimmy? I guess Barry? Briefly? That's it. The other big name then that's lingering is Jim Harbaugh, who's got a Chargers interview, by the way. I have my doubts as to whether or not Jim and Jerry could get along very well, but everywhere he goes, he wins. Every spot he has won at a higher level than what you're accustomed to. So I think you'd be foolish to at least not consider it. Now, you got to figure out the coaching staff there. Seems like Jim is more on board with a GM being in charge there, but you still got to figure that whole thing out. Who do you want as the next Cowboys head coach? Sound off for me in the comment section right now. Tell you who I don't want. It's Dan Quinn. For a year and a half plus now, this defense has been unable to consistently deliver against the best competition. Even more so than your offense, which we'll get to here, by the way, has done. They seem to abandon more of the man stuff and played some more zone with blitzes against their great blitz-beating quarterback. They didn't know their opponents. Quinn's going to have head coach interviews, more on that in a bit here, but this is another year of you're facing a good offense from the Cowboys. You're playing a good opponent on offense, and the results were unacceptable. We'll talk about the passing game stuff here too. But they got outcoached. Matt LaFleur ran circles around Dan Quinn. And that scheming stuff, the LaFleurs, the Shanahans, etc., man, they've owned Dan Quinn. They coached him in Atlanta, and they kicked his ass again. And again, who played well on defense? Tank made some run stops. I thought Chauncey Golson actually played pretty well. That's it. Micah Parsons was a no-show again. And then, in previous years, at least he got pressures. He didn't this time. He got 3 of them. Drew a hold on one. That was the biggest play of the game. He finally drew a holding call. It's not good enough. Now, Quinn's got head coaching interviews. Panthers, Titans, Commanders, Chargers all going to meet with him. Seahawks are going to meet with him as well, it sounds like, at some point, too. It's fine. He can move on. So what do you want to do with Dan Quinn? K for keep. L for just allow him to leave if he gets a job. Otherwise, sure, he can come back. F for fire. And K for keep is the head coach style. Go vote in the comments. I don't really care. And maybe it's still in that emotional reaction stage, whatever. But he can't be your head coach. If you go into this year and go, you know what, we're going to hire Dan Quinn, you're screwed. It's not going to work. It wasn't even just the run defense against Green Bay. Aaron Jones ran all over them in the second half. They actually did a pretty good job early on of stopping him. But they got smoked through the air. Jordan Love had the most efficient playoff game in history from an EPA per play, expected points out of percentage. He dominated them. Among the 24 quarterbacks, at least 7 playoff games this century, the average opponent passing efficiency, so EPA per play, the number 2 quarterbacks are Matt Ryan and Dak Prescott, meaning the opposing team's quarterbacks have gone off against them. Guess who is the one constant there? Dan Quinn. That's not good. Today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. You can go over to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. I'll showcase for you guys my final wild card round prize pick selections that I've got after kind of slowed down a little bit here as of late in fairly frustrating fashion, but that's okay. I'm playing with some of my bonus money thanks to Prize Picks First Deposit Match. The games today / tonight, I've got more than James Cook rushing yards, a half receiving yard for DeAndre Swift was kind of a freebie there. Easy. More than 89.5 yards from the ground, and more than Cade Otton receiving yards as well. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Links in the comments and the description of today's show. Now, there was no way we could get out of here without having some Dak conversation, right? I mean, come on. I would argue that was probably the worst half I've ever seen Dak play in a playoff game. And yeah, the second half numbers were great. He threw for 300-something yards. The game was in garbage time. That doesn't really mean anything for me. Dak did not look like the second-team All-Pro that we saw. And that's the numbers were deceptive. Ignore them. Toss them out the window. They don't mean anything. He was awful to start. He didn't look comfortable. He and Lamb were off, and that's concerning to me because that chemistry has been really good. Makes me wonder if they had belief in that offensive game plan going in, if that was maybe a root cause. He had legitimately put like an MVP candidate. You, me, and the fans, we'd been arguing, hey, MVP candidate. He should win MVP. He probably should have won MVP, if we're being honest. Did not play like it. And it's not just cut him, trade him. Dak has the contract, favor. He has the leverage. You have to make a decision. Whether it's trade him post June 1st, which I think is a really unlikely option, by the way, or extend him or kick the can down the road. You have to make a decision. You have enough information. He's a top 10 quarterback. I've stuck by that for a very, very long time here. You have to make a decision. But you have to figure out the head coach first. That's the bigger priority. Because if you go veteran, if you go like Bill Belichick, he's going to want Dak. And he's not going to want Jimmy Garoppolo back. Like, come on, let's be realistic there. But you can't run it back with Mike, Dak, and Quinn. It's not going to work. This has been my constant. You need change. You need real change. And you probably need a real coaching search. Because doing the same thing and expecting different results is the definition of insanity. You have to make real change there. And with as bad as everything was in that game, nothing should be off the table. From every player on your organization, because they all didn't play very well, nothing should be off the table. Not saying all things are equally realistic, but nothing should be off that table in the end. We will have more off-season coverage for you guys here on the channel. One more news item before we go. Futures deals have been signed for Earl Bostic, Josh Butler, Princeton Fant, Buddy Johnson, Darrell Johnson, Racey McMath, Jalen Cropper, and Sheldrick Redwine. Nothing surprising there. Those are practice squad guys who will fill out your preseason roster. That's very much expected. So what's your confidence level right now in this Cowboys team? Scale it for me from 0 to 10. Let's hit Chris B. Super Chat. Then we'll get into our mailbag. Hashtag Cowboys or Super Chat to get on the show here. Chris B., I think it happens tomorrow if they fire Mike. I think that's your first day of McCarthy watch. To a fault, I would say at times. I would argue that, Jerry is he believes in the shield, right? I don't think he wants to fire a head coach in the position. He did it with Garrett to an extent, though. And the NFC's team was playing, so I can't fully rule it out tonight, I guess. But I would guess if it happens, it's more likely tomorrow or even a Wednesday or a Thursday. Mailbag time here on the show. 2 ways to get on. Number 1, use hashtag Cowboys or Super Chat. If you Super Chat, you skip the line altogether. For the prize picks for our next 2 segment, use the divisional round photo, by the way. So let's get into that Cowboys Report mailbag right now. Couple rapid-fire super thanks I want to give some love to here since, these aren't always the most relevant coming in before the disaster playoff game. CJ Young III, my guy, thank you. Tony Disick, I'm not sure how to pronounce that one, Tony. I can never remember. Hunter M, he says, if we lose Quinn in the offseason, have budget draft, how good is defense next year? Scale of 1 to 10. I don't know. You average loss faith in your defense now. Diggs and Overshown back would help you in a big way. All right, not Jeremy Chugs' burner. Complete knee-jerk reaction, but trade Micah to the Bears for the number 1 pick if you get anything else. Drop the coaching staff minus Harris. Let Dak ride out his contract. Let Caleb sit until he is, good to go. My big issue here, and it is knee-jerk, and that's fine. Totally fine. If you're trading your best defensive piece, so we're disappointed by, to be clear, didn't do enough in the postseason, your defense is already not good enough as it is. How are you going to get better trading away Micah and then allowing Dak to write out the contract? My fear is you're throwing in a quarterback into a spot that you need him to be now a top 3 quarterback, which probably won't be in year 1. And you're kind of wasting some of those rookie years because you still got big quarterback money. I get it. It's a plan, and I appreciate that, but I don't know, how realistic it is anyway, because the Bears should probably take that pick with a QB, for being honest, because Fields is not it, or at least not good enough for them, and figure something else out. Also, from not Jeremy Chugs' burner, went from being worried about Dan leaving to worried about him staying. The same thing happened with Kellen Moore. All in the span of a month. Find out who has the most trade value and trust we're going to make it happen with the picks we get in exchange. That's a rebuild, and that is a plan, at least. Troy, my faith is gone. Talk me off the ledge. We are filming this as part of our Cowboys therapy, 2-hour section. Look, I don't have great answers for you. My hot take that is almost maybe radical. I kind of would have wished if it was like just one player who was bad. Like I would have wished that the head coach blew it with a terrible in-game decision, or the quarterback was terrible and everything else was great, or one corner got smoked the entire game and he had no answer. Because then I can fix one thing in an offseason a lot easier. And I can fire my head coach. I can go draft a corner. I can go find the new QB potentially. Hard to do, but still. It wasn't. It was everything. Everything sucked. That's painful, because how are you going to shuffle guys out with that many things? Easier said than done. So do you trust the Cowboys? I don't. So I don't say it's our year. I've never said it in my life since I've learned my lessons, years ago. On the show, I haven't said it outside of quoting it. Do you trust them? Y for yes and for no in the comments section. Tyler Livestock says McCarthy should have been gone at midnight. Jerry's not going to rush into a decision, but I hope he does go at some point soon. Jermaine419, should the Cowboys go after Justin Fields? No. Why? I don't think a quarterback who was a first-round pick is still banking on the occasional flash, or some flash which are really good, the flip upside's there, who's not as good as half-ish the quarterbacks in the NFC is a solution. I don't think it is. You're getting worse at quarterback, and you got to pay him soon, too. That's why the Bears should trade him to the Falcons. The Falcons make sense for Fields. The Patriots make sense for Fields. The Cowboys, I don't want to downgrade at quarterback if he's not a rookie. And Fields is not a rookie. That's the only way I'm doing it. From Luke, Green Bay and Houston are, if you've got to find the quarterback of the future before trying to build a team. We tried to build a team around a QB, and it has not worked. Fire Mike. Don't extend Dak. Well, Green Bay drafted Jordan Love and gave him 4 years to sit. Houston plugged him into a not great spot and has had great success. So I agree there, but I don't think you built a team and then found a quarterback. You've had the franchise guy between Romo and Dak for 15 years now, or whatever it is, 10 years. No, it's probably 15. So I don't necessarily agree with that. If you want to blow it up, though, okay. I think what you do is you eat the money this year, you suck for a year, and you get your top 5 pick in the 2025 class. From interest, what young coach would you like? Ben Johnson or Bobby Slowick? It's Ben Johnson first and foremost, and then Bobby Slowick second. But I think those are your two. If you want the offensive mind, Those are the two names that stand out to me. Andrew says, blow it all up. Again, I don't think Jerry's going to do it. I would be very shocked if Jerry said, let's rebuild for 2 years. Because he knows he might not make it through those 2 years. His money ain't going to be in a good spot on that point. He cares too much about that. So I think they make a good argument to rebuild. Because it's just, how are you going to make it work? You have to be more aggressive. They don't want to be aggressive. You can make an argument it's the best solution in a bunch of not great ones. So would you rebuild? A for yes, B for no. Go ahead and sound off for me in the comment section right now. From Joshua, trouble with the Cowboys is they lack the intestinal fortitude to win on the road versus higher level competition in playoff games. It's not a Dak problem. It's a coaching and GM problem. I would agree with that, and I would also argue that was similar issues dating back to the Romo, Garrett, Phillips era. It was similar problems. Different reasons, different sides of the ball each time, but I would completely agree on that front. Chris B says 1, Ben Johnson, 2, Harbaugh, 3, Vrabel, 4, Belichick / Slowick. I think in some order, that's my top 5 too. And we can disagree on that top 5. You know what would be great? Is if you fire McCarthy and interview all 5. Wouldn't that be, you do a real coaching search and you interview 3 or 4 more guys too, and maybe one of them shocks you. I have to see a real coaching search. Chris B, can't believe it's the offseason. Jesus, man. It's not fun. It's not a fun spot to be. It's a very frustrating and disappointing standpoint. Now, today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Link will be in the comment section and the description of today's show. I did do a very brief, incomplete divisional round Prize Picks. I've got more than Brock Purdy passing yards. Remember, Green Bay did allow 400 yards, mostly in garbage time, to Dallas. George Kittle attacked the tight end seam, but it was there the entire game, but they didn't do it the second half. George Kittle, more than. And I'll go less than Aaron Jones yards on the ground because I think Green Bay's going to have to air it out a little bit more frequently than you had to do against Dallas. Again, folks, link will be in the comment section and the description of today's show. That's prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS. Algie Pawar, you see how open Green Bay's receivers were versus ours? How about the amount of time Love had versus Dak in the pocket? That was the difference. Again, Jordan Love put together one of the best playoff games you'll ever see. He didn't even throw the ball in the fourth quarter. They were open every play. And that's really... You can't win games your defense playing that badly. It's impossible. You would have needed, honestly, if the offense played great the entire time, with the way the defense played, you would have had to score about 50 to win. It would have been that Broncos-Cowboys game from a few seasons ago. That's not a realistic path to winning anything. From Will Marshall, Jerry doesn't fire Mike McCarthy. Stadium will still sell out as a fan base. We are our own enemy. Jerry doesn't give a better product because we don't force it. That's you know what? If we're being honest, there's some Stockholm syndrome involved here and there for us as fans. Thomas, great name. No sign of Micah streaming today. Thank God. No more podcast Parsons. Not a fan. I think it's a distraction, and fair or not, it elicits more criticism. From Jordan, how would you fix this Cowboys team? That is an answer that would take a lot longer than the 30-second to minute and a half clips we do on the mailbag. So we will do ideal off-season plan. Ideally, once they fire Mike McCarthy. The games are over, but we're not going anywhere. We will have multiple times a day videos for you guys. Hit that sub button right now. From Sam, coaching plan. Vrabel as head coach, Raheem as the defensive coordinator, and a Niners guy as the OC. Down with the Niners guy or anyone in that tree as the OC. Vrabel head coach, sure. You're not going to get Raheem Morris as the DC. He's going to be a head coach back in LA. Good thought, though, but just not going to happen. Roberto Pohl. Let's not forget McCarthy brought Mike Nolan. That was a terrible choice. Bring in a defensive coach that has given the Niners trouble, and bring in DeMarco running scheme back. Run duo. That works. Or do straight Shanahan run stuff, which he did a little bit and then got away from it for no reason. Orlando Cardona. So he traded Lance to be a backup. SMH. I mean, yeah. It was a 4th-round pick. It was a late 4th-round pick. You know, it would have been no different than like drafting Aiden O'Connell this season. You know, or Jake Hayner. Like that's kind of what it was. It was again. I know that there was the early like investment of like, hey, number 3 overall pick you traded for. It was a 4th-round pick. 4th-round picks at quarterback, with the exception of your current guy and Kirk Cousins, are pretty much always backups. I'm cool. McCarthy out. I hope you are correct. It would be very nice to have that happen. He can't come back, man. Chris, trade Dak for the 1st overall pick? I mean, if you can pull it off, I guess, sure. But like, there's 2 different like conflating things here. A, if you can get the number 1 overall pick for a player, you probably shouldn't trade them. Like that means that player's so valuable that he's going for a lot. That's probably not what you want to do. And I guess side note here, Dak has a no trade clause. I don't know if I were Dak, I'd say I'm not going to the freaking Bears. No deal. Like I'm not doing that at all. And if you do get the number 1 overall pick, the other thing we have to be honest here about, and this is part of the whole rebuild mindset, go back and look at these drafted quarterbacks. Like the last several years of draft history at the quarterback position, right? Those early round picks. Bryce Young doesn't look very good. Stroud does. It's great. Oh, Trevor Lawrence. He was bad this year. Didn't play very well. Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields. Joe Burrow's been good. You know? Herbert's been solid. Tua's not as good as that. Murray's not. Baker's not. There's like maybe 3 guys of like the 15 that have gone in the top 10 that are better than your current player. So playing the odds, even with good class this year, a lot of risk involved there. A lot of risk. I just want to acknowledge that part. Gold Fox 177. Say we keep Dak. What 2nd round or later QB would it be good to build up than start later? I actually don't want to do that. You just did that with Trey Lance. Lance is that young developmental quarterback, right? If you're keeping Dak, go be aggressive. Win now. And then whether it's 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever it is, then rebuild and get an early draft pick. Because if you're going to rebuild, do it the right way. Bottom out, get that top 3 pick, and gamble on that young guy being the next top 10 quarterback you have. That's, I think, your best path. AJ Medell, funny thought, we're sitting here 10 years now having the same conversation with teams being ran by Jerry's AI. Don't you put that evil on me, AJ. Massive Matt, anyone else just drive around after the game? I kind of just sat down for a bit. I just kind of just sitting out in the studio, not doing anything. That's where I was at. It has been a therapy hour here, or I guess 2 hours on the Cowboys Report. Give me one word for how you're feeling right now. No more super. If there are no more supers, we will sign off here. We've got other things to do. We're going to be live for the Bucs-Eagles game in a couple hours on the Chat Sports YouTube channel. So give me your one word for how you're feeling right now. Pissed. Ooh, dejected's a good one. Clinch McCoy. Tom is the reason we are losing the past 3 seasons, and I have to go. You know what? Ownership's not going to take accountability. I will. You can blame me. That's fine. You can blame me. I will once again make my offer. Jerry, give me the team for 10 years. I might go down to 7 years for you. I promise you I will win a championship in that 10-year time frame, or I will sell the team. I'll do it. I guarantee it, or I will sell. And I won't throw drinks on fans like certain owners will either. $5 super chat from Darren Morris here to extend the timer. I can live with fans telling me it's not realistic to move on from Dak because of the cap or Jerry, but to say he shouldn't get blamed, you're delusional. I don't think there are that many. Dak gets blamed for me for that last game. He was terrible in the first half. The numbers are all fake. My mindset is, and this is, again, I'm still in the emotional window, so say whatever you want. I think Darren enjoyed the first half, like the cap doesn't make it very viable, and Jerry doesn't want to either. That's fine. He does deserve blame. I think in general, we assign too much blame to the quarterbacks across this sport. Everyone's blaming Tua for the Dolphins' performance. He wasn't very good, but Tyreek Hill's out there getting jammed in the dirt, right? Stafford played great. People are blaming him somehow. It's not all the quarterback's fault. It comes with territory being the Cowboys quarterback that you get a lot of blame or not. But the only way the other big issue I have is outside of San Francisco, which San Francisco owns you, and I have no faith in you ever beating them right now until you do something drastic. But your other playoff losses, your defense has been even worse than your quarterback was. And it's a team sport. Team sport. And when everything's bad, it's my last point again. When everything is bad, that is a coaching issue, or it's a me issue. You guys can blame me too. I can put the weight of the pain on my shoulders. It's fine. We'll go to Chris B. Super, then we'll sign off here. Chris B. says, hope for a live tomorrow that Mike McCarthy has been fired. Yeah, that'd be nice, wouldn't it? You just can't keep him. There's just no way. We will have more off-season coverage for you here on the show. So make sure you guys are subscribed, youtube.com/Cowboys TV. Hope you enjoyed our hour-and-a-half therapy session. Shoot. We got to do cut candidates. Oh, duh. Sorry. We forgot about cut candidates. We're not going to go away yet. I don't know why I fucking forgot about that. Yeah, right there in the script. Cut candidates first. Sorry. We're not going away. So never mind. Disregard the ramblingness. I forgot to build a whole other segment. So we're not going to go away. We will not go away. So get your supers in, then we'll come back and hit those here after the next actual final cut of the show. This is the Cowboys Report. I am Tom Downey. Unfortunately, the offseason is here as the Cowboys broke our hearts once again. Time for an offseason staple video. Cut candidates. The players the Cowboys could potentially move on from this offseason to save some money in the process. Now, we will have tons of offseason coverage for you. News, rumors, trades, draft, free agency, everything else in between. Hit that sub button so you don't miss out as we break down the Cowboys cut candidates who, if they got cut, would save you money. So not as many names as we normally see on this list. First up is Michael Gallup. He carries a $13.85 million 2024 cap hit. Now, that's a lot of money. The Cowboys restructured this deal last year, which in the end just kind of pushed off some of the money into this year. It does even out in the end. You would only save $800,000 with a post-June 1st cut. That's it. If you made it after June 1st, pushing money off into the future, you'd save $9.5 million. That pays for your draft class and more. And the issue is, man, you have not gotten good play out of Michael Gallup this year, or last year, or even in 2021. The former 1,000-yard receiver has seen his numbers go in the wrong direction. He doesn't move as well as he used to. There's no separation. And I hope that we don't overreact to what amounts to one half of performance, which in Michael Gallup's case, he was great in the second half against Green Bay. I can't not save $9 million for a guy that legitimately is like my number 4 playmaker at best on offense. I can't. Let Tolbert add there. If you find a speedy guy, go for it. Cool. What do you want to do with Michael Gallup? K for keep, C for cut. Sound off for me in the comment section right now. The other name that would actually save you some money is Brandon Cooks. Now, again, on this list here, I'm not always going to advocate to cut all these guys, but these are the guys you have to have the conversations on. $10 million cap hit. It's less than Gallup. $4 million in savings right now. $8 million after June 1st. Not an insignificant amount of savings. But in the back half of the year, he got going a little bit more. He was a good red zone threat for Dallas. The speed was still there, but there's also this element as well. His numbers have dropped the last 3 years, 2020 to 2021, to 22 to 23. That's not ideal. I think there were some schematic issues, and there were misplays from Dak that could have bumped up those numbers. And as heavy as you fed CeeDee Lamb, you probably only need around 700 yards from Cooks to make him a viable number 2 or even number 3 on this team. So for the relatively cheap contract you have, I'd lean towards keeping him because I don't want to have to lock myself into adding another wide receiver in draft or free agency. I'm open to it, but if you cut Gallup and Cooks, you pretty much have to. It is a good class, though. So name a player who you want to cut. Sound off for me. Where else but the comment section right now? We have to have the tank conversation. And this one is not as... It's a little bit more nuanced than I think will be had on social media, like everything is with the Cowboys. Big cap hit, $20.45 million. You only save $2.56 if it's before June 1st. It's $10 million after June 1st. The raw numbers for Tank, the sack numbers don't look very good. I will also say this part. He is your one good run defender. He is the only guy that is consistently making plays against the run. That is consistently finding ways to impact the defense or against the offense on defense. So I don't want to cut him unless you go rebuild, which I don't think Jerry Jones wants to do. The cap number is a big number. It should scare you at least a certain amount. I totally get that. The sack numbers aren't great, but he gets a bunch of pressures. I mean, he didn't get a sack for the interception he caused not last week, but in the final regular season game. Like, he's still impactful. The pressure is there. The run defense is there. The sacks aren't. That's not ideal. But if you replace Tank Lawrence, if you cut Tank Lawrence to save $10 million after June 1st, that's now your number one need is finding another defensive end. So unless you're rebuilding, I say no. Leighton Vander Esch, next up here. And this one might not be so much a cut as it is a retirement. $4.75 million cap hit, $2.5 million pre- and post-June 1st savings, so no changes there. Actually pretty affordable. And while some people might have said, I'm not saying anyone watching, that Rashaan Evans was better, clearly was not. And the reality is, you missed Leighton Vander Esch. He's a little bit bigger. He can do some good, run-stopping things. And at his contract, if he wants to come back, you're probably okay doing it and feeling better about your linebacking crew. But he's missed a lot of games over the years with neck issues. And now that he's a kid, congrats, by the way, LVE, I have some doubts as to if he's going to come back to Dallas. He might just retire. So will Leighton Vander Esch play again for the Dallas Cowboys? Why for yes and for no? Sound off in the comments section. Other cut candidates here. These next couple of names are probably more move. The next 3 names are probably going to be moves that could hypothetically happen, closer to roster cut down time. Cooper Rush, not that expensive. Again, there was not much interest in him in free agency. $2.88 million cap hit, $2.25 each of the next 2 years if you choose to cut him, and savings whether pre-June 1st or post-June 1st, excuse me. If this, what I think this comes down to is, how does Trey Lance look in the preseason? Because you made the trade for Lance knowing you weren't going to get anything for this year. That was fine. This upcoming preseason was going to be his time to shine. Can he show you enough to keep him as your backup quarterback at least? Otherwise, you might ride with Rush for one more year. The win-loss is nice. I think we're fooling ourselves if we think Cooper Rush is the reason why you're winning those football games. I mean, his numbers are not that great in the handful of starts he's had. He's done his job as a bus driver, as a backup. He's super affordable, so maybe for like a 7th-round pick too. But I think Rush's cut would most likely come as more of a, Lance balls out in the preseason, you shop rush and maybe get a pick, or you just keep him as your third quarterback. Not a ton of savings, but if it's over $1 million, I'm pretty much going to talk about you. Now, today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. If you want to have some fun, some daily fantasy fun, in the playoffs, use Prize Picks. It's daily fantasy made easy. 2 to 6 player stat projections, more than or less than, and you watch the winnings roll in if you get your picks correct. I do have one individual game on Prize Picks set up. I got more than Brock Purdy passing yards, more than George Kittle receiving yards, less than Aaron Jones rushing yards. I think the Niners might blow out Green Bay. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. It's prizepicks.com/CLNS. Next cut candidate is Nahshon Wright. $1.44 million on his cap. You save $1.23 with a cut. Nahshon Wright was a bad pick. I despised it at the time. I think I've been proven right. He has barely played for you at all. He has not been very impactful when he's been out there. He played 8 games and allowed a touchdown almost immediately once he came out there. And it was so bad in 2022, in addition to Boss Man Fat, who is, of course, gone now. They didn't even play Nahshon Wright. He's been a top 100 pick, and he couldn't get on the field. You know, if Dan Quinn leaves, bring Nahshon Wright with him. That was a Dan Quinn specialty pick. Didn't work out. Did not work out at all. Now, we will have more Cowboys news and rumors and all the best off-season coverage out there for you. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/Cowboys TV for more free Dallas Cowboys YouTube videos. Josh Ball, I'm back on my Josh Ball hating train. $1.18 million is owed, $1.06 if you cut him. The dude can't stay healthy. He's not that good of a player either. I have no desire to keep Josh Ball. Matt Beletsko, Awesome Richards, TJ Bass, Brock Hoffman, all better backup offensive linemen as far as I'm concerned. Josh Ball can get all the way out of here. So what is your confidence level in the Cowboys this offseason? We will add 0 to the scale because I know we're all down bad here. What is your confidence level? Scale it for me right now in the comment section, 0 to 10. Now, because I know how you guys operate, I am going to put this on here for you just to show you the money. Dak is owed $59 and almost $500,000 this upcoming year. Nobody wants that cap figure to stay the same. You owe him pretty much all of it, though, with the way the deal has been structured. You cut him right now, you actually lose $2.46 million. Or trade him, that's what you owe him. If you cut him after June 1st, or designate him a post-June 1st cut, you would save $34 million this year on the salary cap. However, that is a post-June 1st cut. As with all post-June 1st cuts, you're just pushing money off in the future. You would still owe him $36.5 million in 2025. So you're basically paying 2 years of franchise quarterback cap numbers if you were to cut Dak. That doesn't really make any sense. Unless you want to go full-on rebuild, blow it up, which you would be able to trade him, as opposed to cutting him. You would just eat all the money now and deal with the bad cap number for 1 year. I don't think it actually makes a lot of sense, but I know how everyone operates, so I'll show you the money, to quote a movie there, about what the significantly negative aspect would be. I do want to fire Mike, though. Why for yes and for no? I'm shocked it's 86% say yes, but that number would be higher. Backs up my theory, though, that 15% will always disagree with you, no matter what. All right, supers coming in. Any more supers, we will we'll hit those, then we'll sign off today. From Vortexy, watching for 5 years, Tom, yet we're still in the same spot. Let Tom take control, give us change. I wish we would get some chances. He was splitting time with Gallup, and then playoff time comes and Gallup outsnaps him 2-1. At least Gallup wasn't a problem for once. Thomas says trade Dak, stack the roster, hope for a good QB. That's a rebuilding plan. So trade Dak, eat the money. I would honestly, what I would do is I would trade Dak, eat the money for a year, play Lance, see how that goes. Probably not going to go great, frankly, because you're also going to have a new head coach come in. I would assume a new head coach comes in. My concern is you get caught in no man's land, and you get caught being the Falcons right now, where you're an 8-win team, a 7-win team, something like that, and you're not drafting early enough to get a QB, and you're not good enough to even make the postseason. That's the real hell spot, is where the Falcons are right now. You're in not that bad of a spot. You're just in a sad spot. That's the bad spot. But at least it's a plan, and all I ask for is plans. Vortexy again, who's your dream OC, and what changes for the offense? Go throw money at someone from the Shanahan-McVay tree. Those are the best offenses in football. They maximize everything that they do. They can actually run the football these days. Go steal someone from that tree. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But that's better than trying out all these retreads again. Darren Morris, how do we fix this run game on both sides of the ball? To me, that was the biggest problem with this team outside of culture. It's a lot of scheme stuff. On offense, you have 3 All-Pros on the offensive line, but your center is not that great, and your right tackle regressed pretty bad coming off the injury. But you didn't run duo, and you didn't run outside zone. And those are the best play calls to run on offense right now, and it's best for your back. You just kept trying to do your tight zone stuff. Like, the scheme was so bad. Pollard was like top 5 in forced missed tackles in the back half of this season. That's really good, but you would never have known based on his yards per carry, his efficiency, because it was bad. Constantly hit behind the line of scrimmage. Just awful impact there. So my thought is you got to do some different scheme stuff. They made changes and they made bad changes in the end. Defensively, don't have your nose guard who's been a first-round pick on drop like nearly 40 pounds of weight and have him play 3 technique. I mean, they're out there. They're out there against the Packers late in the second half, and they got this like too high dime look, and you got a 197-pound defensive back playing linebacker. Like, what do you think is going to happen? You got Mozzie Smith, who's been a first-round pick as a nose guard, lined up as a shade outside 3 technique. No shit, that doesn't work. That's just bad scheme and bad coaching. And what's also frustrating is you stopped the run pretty well in the first half. They did not run the ball that well on you. You got cooked through the air, and then they kept going run, and you were so scared of the pass, you never loaded the box. Just bad coaching. All right, this time we will actually leave here. We will have plenty of off-season coverage. Hit that sub button for more free Cowboys videos. Hopefully our next live show is McCarthy's Been Fired live show. Hit that sub button right now.